G'day, welcome to David Joshua Ford Live. This is episode 105, and on today's show we're taking a look at my Livestream rack build, the continuing project that I have here, which is taking a little bit longer than I had anticipated because of life events and other aspects of the rack which we can get into. But on today's show, I just wanted to go over again some rack power management, because that's probably been the biggest challenge of this in trying to get this rack really compact and small and efficient. And then we can also look at some other things that I've encountered along the way that I really liked, and I'm going to show you sort of what I've been putting in there, including an enclosure for the Mac Mini M4, so it's not just floating around in the case. And then lastly, I want to look at Dante and the Blackmagic SDI to audio conversion, because part of this rack is trying to get two components. One is video, one is audio, as separate 8U racks, and I don't want to rock up to an event and have to plug in 16 different audio cables. So I just want one Ethernet cable to connect the audio rack and the video rack. And there's a few other things on the back end that we've got to do to make sure that is happening, so we can go over that. If you're new to this channel, we talk about live streaming, video, photography, any of that kind of production stuff. So drop your questions in the chat, and particularly if you have anything in regards to today with this live stream, do drop that in there, because your questions can help guide the show and sort of focus my presentation. And turn this one down a bit. All right, let's kick off. And first of all, I just wanted to focus on the remote power management aspect of this rack. So this is looking at sort of constant versus switched power, and I've changed it up a little bit since my previous rack. So my older rack, which was a 4U, had this switch in it. So there was like a power filter, and then there was that downstream of that was just this switch. So that's this one's not actually it's got a limiter in it, whatever we call it, like a load reset in it, but it's basically just a switch with 8 ports on it. And then it was hard switches here, so this was useful if I needed to, for example, restart a device that had frozen or something. I could just come in and individually switch the constellation off and on, and sort of troubleshoot that way. But it does take up a certain amount of space there, and so what I've got instead is this Furman. It's a pretty basic kind of one. They've gone up in price actually, just with everything that's going on in the world. I think it used to be about $70. Now it's about $80. Pretty standard. It's probably similar size. It's already in here, so I don't want to flip it around, but similar size to this, what you're looking at here. So, except the front panel is just blank with one output and a switch on it, and then the back has a bunch of outlets. So this Furman is now my power conditioner in the rack, and there's some switches that are going that are always on. So it's mainly the router, and I've got like a cloudpod in there and a little hard drive attached to that. So it's sort of the cloud networking aspect of it. And then pretty much everything else on this rack is working off at some point in there, one of these cards are Wi-Fi plugs, and that just allows me to remotely switch it on and off, but also with like a Stream Deck Studio to basically on the front of the rack have the power to switch these off. So I can have a hard button on the front of the rack with the Stream Deck Studio's button, and then it's actually controlled over Wi-Fi. So that's locally, or on my phone if it's connected to the internet. I can switch that on remotely. So it means that I can have the studio powered down here, and then I can go home and I can actually boot up the whole studio. I could run a whole show remotely, but also knowing that I don't have to worry about it being on all the time. Or even I can leave the studio if something's still running, and then I can power it down after having left. So that can be useful for things like file copying and stuff like that, which might be taking a little bit longer. All right, so this is sort of the first level of that. I do have in here an IEC inlet. Let's see if I can get a bit closer in for you down here, which I haven't actually plugged that in yet. It's a bit closer this way. There we go. Because I was having to build the switch actually. So the Furman, if I can get this into shot, this has a basic NEMA plug here. This is a US plug. There's other ones that would have, I can find it here. So for example, like this is a different sort of Furman power conditioner, a bit more compact, and it actually has the IEC plug in there. So you could get a sort of custom cable and make it really short, which if you've got a small rack and you want it to be portable and take it on the road, you don't want to have a massive amount of cable. But because I landed on the Furman, this one, the Merit series power conditioner, this Furman has a power cord, and I'm not going to go and cut that one because I just think it's bad practice and not safe. And so instead, I've built a piggy tail like this, which would basically plug into this. And I haven't installed it because I actually just built this morning. And then these prongs will plug into the IEC connector, which will be down here. So this cable will live inside of the rack, and then the end result will just be a very clean outlet down here where I can plug in my own cable length. So, you know, here in the studio, I'll probably just put on a 6-foot cable, and I don't have to worry about reams of extra cable in a small space here. But when I go to do a job, I can take a longer cable to reach further, or sometimes I quite using one which has a right angle plug on it, just because it can, if you're plugging into the wall or something like that, it can be less chance of it being knocked or pulled out. So just making sure that that's a really sort of secure input. So that's the sort of power coming into it side of things. And then I mentioned that actually have switching capability in here. The ones I've been using for a long time are these Casa TP-Link switches. I've got 2 of them back to back here, if I can get in a bit closer. This one on the top here is the one that I've been using a lot, but they've got one that I saw more recently, which is the Mini, which isn't a huge amount smaller, but in the context of this rack is small enough that it will fit alongside. And so you can see in the back here, I actually have the Furman has, actually I could probably show you on the marketing diagram. The Furman has 3 spaced sockets, so these can actually handle the Mini, the Casa Mini, and then that leaves me 5 outlets for consistent power, which is, as I was saying, the router, and then I have the cloudpod, and then the other 3 are actually going through to the outlet of the rack. So I've got some actual additional outlets here that I can plug in for if I need power outside of the rack. So that's kind of how I'm using that power management. Initially, I was trying to, I think I was showing you on last week's show or a couple of whiles ago, Casa does this strip in either 3 or 6 plugs. And I was trying to fit the 6, and I was also trying to fit the 3 in, and it was just big and bulky in this space. And so I ended up going with the mini plugs. The main reason I wanted to go with the strip was it has 1 IP address to manage 6 sockets, so it's just a little less management on that side of things. But the plugs are very easy to kind of fit them where you want them, and so each one would have its own IP address, and it's fine. Once it's set up, it's not a problem. But yeah, just the bulkiness of this along the space here was a bit of a challenge. So I ended up ditching that, and instead of 6 switched outlets, I'm going to have 4 instead, which is enough. And I'll show you what we've got with that one over here. So this was my power management rough spreadsheet. So on the first switch is going to be the bulk of the rack, and it's actually powering all of these ones. So it's like the Constellation and Hyperdeck Web Presenter, a bunch of like 12 circuit things, switchable front racks if I need that. I've got the deck link here in an enclosure, BiDi converters, PoE switch to power PDZ cameras, all that kind of stuff. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that's probably the biggest load of the rack, which is probably, what's that, 600 watts, say. And then I wanted more variable options for these other ones. So plug number 2 is going to do the ATEM Mini Extreme, and that is primarily so that I can, after a live stream, turn off the studio, but keep the ATEM Extreme on for the network port to be finished copying files from the ATEM's SSD over to the cloudpod disk that'll be in there, and then once that's finished, I can sort of shut that down remotely. So that was the sort of variability that I was talking about there. I was talking about getting the monitors on the front of the rack and the Stream Deck Studio on the switch, but since I don't have 2 of them, and also since these are kind of local things, like I'm only ever going to need the screen if I'm sitting in front of it, and the Stream Deck Studio if I'm sitting in front of it. So these are going to be on manual switches, which I can actually show you. Oh. So the front panel patch, panel hasn't been connected yet. That's going to go on the front side here. And what I have is some of these switches here. Getting a little closer. This is upside down. So previously I was running the Pi and the AC Infinity fan on these. So you can see these 2 switches here. They're basically a 12 volt circuit, and then I've got a 12 volt, like 120 watt power adapter, which is going to be split into a bunch of DC barrel outs. So this helps me run monitors or whatever externally to the rack on these little outputs here. But then I can either internally or externally, I've wired this up on the switch so that I can basically have input power and output power. So I could grab one of these outputs here and sort of build a switch so that I could, switch this port on or off. But also internally, I can just run it that way. So these are going to become the monitors, and I've got can't see it yet. So I can turn off the screens if I don't need it, because a lot of the time I'm actually just running this whole rack as a sort of a brain unit. And let me chuck this one down somewhere. Let's chuck it down the front. And then on the Stream Deck Studio, it does have PoE, but I want this to be able to power up the rack, and so I needed to separate out the power from the device because I don't want it on all the time. I do want to be able to shut it down, and so with that front switch, that is going to turn on the power. So with the PoE input here, I'm just going to be running it off a network connection. So I'm not going to plug this into my PoE switch because the PoE switch gets powered down with the rack, turns off cameras and all that kind of stuff. So this will just go straight into the router with no power, and then the power will come through this USB-C delivery, which is 9 volt and 3 amp. And by this stage, I've accumulated so many things in different pouches that I realized I could, not that one, that's an audio connector. I could take my 12 volt circuit and turn it into the 9 volt, 3 amp, 27, it's like 25 watts is what the Stream Deck Studio needs. So what I've got is, where are we? A splitter. So the barrel output into a Y splitter, one is going to go to the cloudpod because that's always on. And then the other one is going into this DTAP thing that I built for if you remember my ATEM mini rig I'm going to say 5 years ago now, 4 years ago. It's getting on. I wanted a short adapter to mix a D-tap and a 12 volt barrel type thing. So I've got my 12 volt barrel into a D-tap, and then a while ago I bought this Condor Blue D-tap to USB-C. I think I was going to run it on my R5C, and then it was just kind of redundant, and the whole transformer thing here is too big and bulky on my camera. So this is sitting around, and I was like, I'm going to use this on the Stream Deck Studio. So I'm going to take a 12 volt circuit, plug that into the D-tap, and then this will regulate a 65 watt USB-C power delivery output, which can negotiate with the Stream Deck Studio. And then because I'm trying to squeeze things in, I'm going to use a right angled plug just for space saving. But that's how we're going to be able to have the Stream Deck Studio manually. So when I'm at the rack, I can switch on the Stream Deck Studio. And then once the Stream Deck Studio is on, I can actually power up everything individually in terms of the majority of the rack or the ATEM, and do any other things that I need to do, because the Mac Mini inside of it will always be on as well. So let me just put this one away. Running out of space here and just trying to dump things all over the spot. What else we got with power? So the last thing okay, I'll go back to this one. All right, so there was the manual switches on the front. The Mac Mini is going to be on one of these plugs. It'll always be on. I'm not going to switch it off, but it just means if I ever have the point where the computer completely freezes up on me and I'm remote, like I can't restart the Mac Mini, then I can come in here and turn that plug off and back on to kind of crash the computer, and it's set to restart on power failure. So it'll just reboot that remotely if I need that. So that's an option there. And then the other one is the fan. So that was my, this one, which I was running out of the space. So at the moment I've got like a 3-foot cable, but I'm going to get a 1-foot cable to just offset this because there's enough space here for the plug. So not this one. This was the difference in size here. But this one will be powering the AC Infinity fan. So that'll set up the back here, and the fan will be running to push all the heat out. And the reason I prioritized putting that fan as one of my 4 switches that are available is I've done live streams before where I've forgotten to turn off or down the rack fan, and in this studio my rack is like right next to the microphone. So normally when I'm live streaming for an hour, I'll switch the fan off. So now that it's on a switch, I can just build that into my run of show in Companion. So when I'm on my Stream Deck and just sort of stepping through my show queues, that'll just be in the queue where, you know, when I start the show, the rack fan will turn off, and when I stop the show, the fans will turn back on. I mean, I guess I could also relate that to a microphone on or off, but really the microphone's open the whole time. So that is how I've sort of put together the rack power. The last thing is, you may remember from last week, I think, I had a power strip, like just a little mini distribution power strip down here along the bottom. And I was in, part of what's taken so long is trying to just, so many things on Amazon, like, you know, trying to get 2-foot plugs which have the right angle IEC in the right direction, and then on the other end have a right angle plug, because I really want something that's flat, because if it's a straight plug, then suddenly you've lost all this space in this rack, and it's a shallow rack. So that is the challenge of what I've been doing. Fortunately, Amazon's great for that kind of stuff. I pretty much buy between B&H and Amazon, and maybe a little bit off Sweetwater for some of the audio stuff that I couldn't get elsewhere. But my first stop is going to B&H, partly because I live in New York. It's very easy to do a return. I just, a couple of blocks away, I can drop that off, so I don't have to worry about packaging stuff off and shipping it. So returns for me are easy, but also I've got the Paybu card that they offer, which saves the tax. So there's 8.875 sales tax in New York that the credit card, the store credit card, refunds. So that's quite a bit of savings on, many thousands of dollars of equipment. And what else? I've also got a creator account with B&H, and so there's various items that are sort of 5%, maybe 20% off different things. So often there's like a little bit of a discount there, so that helps as well. And then for bigger things, like I just bought a whole bunch of audio gear, which we'll talk about next week. I was hoping to do that this week, but haven't unboxed it. So when I'm buying a whole bunch of things in bulk, I can call them up and they'll do a discount. So I feel like I probably got maybe close to 10% off a whole sort of Sennheiser audio order. So that, in conjunction with the credit card savings, adds up to a lot of money. So for my bigger items, I am usually going to B&H, and also for the small ones as well. And then Amazon is so handy from the point of view of, like, if you need some random little plug or something, then you don't really have to think about shipping. So I can, just buy stuff and it kind of turns up, and then over a couple of days I can get what I need into this rack. And as long as you can do it fast enough, then you can return the items that aren't working. So it's been my sort of process of building and buying all this stuff and putting that together. I think that's probably... Oh, I was going to talk about the last power thing. So I've got a... what do you call it? Which I'll show in a bit. A 2U shelf of connectors, which are, what do you call them? Converters. HDMI to SDI, NDI, that kind of stuff. It's also going to have the Mac Mini, and the deck link is going to be here. And that's going to live here, and the power being down here is like, there's too many cables coming across the front of this, getting in the way. So I went the route of putting it inside the rack, and that meant that I needed all these flathead plugs, which has been, that's why I got a lot of things from Amazon. So I'm back to my old patch panel. This was actually the one on the old patch, my old rack, which has been great to change out some of the slots. I put in another two Ethernet ports. So I've got my WAN in, and then one will be the Wi-Fi out for the access point, and then the other one will be the connection, like an Ethernet connection to the audio rack, which will go over separately. But basically, the only connection between the two racks will be one Ethernet cable, and then all of the other audio is done via sort of Dante adapters, which again we'll talk about. And so with this power on here, as I said, I was running out of space for this old guy, so he had to go. So that cleared some space here. We really need space for the patch bay to come through here. So there's 3 inches there of space for that. And then I've got this power strip facing up with the flat plugs, and that enables it to clear the computer parts that are going to go over the top of it. And then flat plugs on the Wi-Fi plugs means that I was just able to save a bunch of space. And that's how I was able to just kind of condense it all down, because you can have a lot of just power cables and cords that aren't really adding value to the rack, and they're just taking up space. And so the more you can sort of condense that down, you can fit more in there and take less on the road. So that is, that's the power side of things. let's take quick questions here. I should have brought my iPad up, but I'm going to be looking at my screen over here. Maybe I could bring my iPad. Where is it? I usually charge it, but my desk is a mess, as you can see. Do I have power? No, I do. Oh yeah, 52%. All right, get my iPad up and running for questions. As I was saying, as we go along, please do put your questions in the chat, because I'd love to hear from you and to answer any questions that we have going along. Okay, now I have my questions. Walter from Amsterdam, great to have you here. Also, Nico from the Netherlands, great to have you joining here as well. We've got Andreas in Germany, and who else do we have? Walter's in Amsterdam, and Jesse's in California. And Colton, I'm excited too. Great that you can be here and that you've caught me live on a Friday, which is not normal. Normally it's a Thursday. I am open to other days of the week if it's better, but it's just normally been a Thursday. But my wife was getting her nails done yesterday, so I have to I had to bump it to today. So she deserves it. She's been doing a lot of hard work. Great. Thanks for the questions here. Walter says, why do you have a cloudpod in the case? Good question. So this is the cloudpod, which I haven't put in. It'll live up on these shelves that don't exist yet. So the cloudpod has a 10G Ethernet switch and then 2 regular SSD drives that you can plug into it. So this kind of thing. So I've got like 4 terabytes on this one, and then I've got another hard drive which has got like a 20 terabyte RAID. So they're just regular hard drives that I would have normally edited off in years ago. Now I can plug these into the cloudpod, and then they live on the network as a NAS, network attached storage. And so it means from my main workstation over here, on this Mac, if I'm editing, I'm not really showing you the right computer, am I? Let me see if I can go over here. So I have my workstation here, and it means, and this has a 10G Ethernet adapter, like a dock, OWC dock, Thunderbolt Pro dock. So my main workstation is going to be connected to the rack, which is going to have the router in it. I have a different studio router, but I'm going to move it into the rack. And it just means that I can access all of the footage very fast, and I don't have to worry about plugging in different drives. For recording, it's still, let me come back over here. It's going to be where are we? Oh, so many different devices. So, meaning like I just strewn them around the studio because I'm needing space and there's a bunch of dust on here. So the A10 Mini Extreme SDI version, still my favorite piece of hardware. It's just, and I feel like if the new version of this had a mix of SDI and HDMI, it'd be perfect. But it's only HDMI, so whatever. Just because I want to avoid all the, you saw the whole rack of converters. So when I do a live stream, at the moment I'm just running off my older A10 Mini Pro ISO, so I've only got 4 inputs today, but I'm recording that onto the hard drive. So normally when I have my 2ME Constellation up, it has 12 outputs. The first 8 of those are going to go directly into the SDI Extreme ISO as a 8-track video recorder. And then the other 4 outputs are a mix of going to the web presenter to do the streaming, and then also to, floor monitors and teleprompter, and just so I can sort of keep track of what's going on with the stream. And on the back of here is also, you can plug in a solid state hard drive, and this is also network attached. So it means that from your A10 Mini or A10 Mini Extreme or whatever, you can actually across your network access this SSD. So after I do a show and I have a sort of backup copy on the ATEM Extreme, I can just go to my workstation and over here, and I can, too far, and I can access the footage and back it up and just sort of keep that all synced and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's kind of the network side of it. It is, because the USB-C on the cloudpod is only 5 gigabit, it means that you're not going to get the full 10 gigabit throughput. I guess you could run 2 hard drives and maybe they're 5 gig each, and so you wouldn't have a bottleneck that way, but you're not going to have one drive at 10 gig. Dump that back over here. Thanks for your question. How we make sure the Mac Mini is always on. I'm just going to plug it in, and I just won't turn off the Wi-Fi switch. So from the wall's AC power here, it's going into the rack, into the Furman, and then there's a Wi-Fi plug between the Furman and the Mac Mini, which is just always on, and it would only turn off if I got into my app and switched it off. And but yeah, I don't have any UPS or whatever. I think I have looked into, and I have done UPSs for other rack builds or for client builds, and I think they're better suited to like permanent installations. Like I'm trying to get a portable rack here, and if I added in a UPS down the bottom, they're big and heavy. I mean, there's some that use sort of lithium ion batteries, which are lighter weight, but they still take up like a whole U space, and I think probably are too deep for, there's some that are shallow enough. This is like 11.5 rail to rail, so could do that. But I think if I had a really critical job, I would just kind of have that outside of the rack as a UPS that I sort of plug into, and I deal with it that way. How we make sure the Mac Mini is always on. I know you can set it to start after power failure, but if you shut down via the menu, you have to push the power button. Yes. No, I'd never do that. I was like, you can do it in the menu. So with my Mac Mini, it's always on. So if I would never actually shut it down, it's a good point. It is sort of a little, if you did make the mistake of shutting it down, you'd probably have to come in and push that button. Maybe there's something on Amazon that would just push the button. I haven't run into that problem because I never actually shut it down. I have like my main computer here, I would put to sleep. So, and it's sort of, you can in the screen sharing, if you have your mouse hovering over the close the screen sharing button, but then the keyboard arrow down, you can put the computer to sleep and then close the window so you don't wake it up again. But yeah, that's a good point. If you didn't make the mistake of shutting it down in the menu, then you would have to physically push the button on. I have a video that I've shot but haven't edited yet about the whole Mac Mini process. So if I find some time and I finish the rack, then I'll finish the edit and I'll get that out, because in there I was talking about how to set up the Mac Mini not using the file vaults, because then you have to log in locally. You can't log in remotely. And turning on things like the power failure. How are you handling lighting in the rack while you work on things? I'm assuming you're talking about like this light here, which is, it's actually just an Aperture 60X that I have up in my lighting grid, and I've just spotlit it on here, so I'm working on it like that. I haven't put any utility lights in here. Maybe I could sort of, that would be fun. I probably should do that, kit it out that way, but just haven't gone the route of putting lighting on the inside. You know, if I really need to get to the back of something, I could shine my phone in here so you can see what's going on. But mostly just, I'm using a studio light just to spotlight this, which is why the shadow is sort of casting that. And also it's on the top of my head. I was trying to bundle that off, but it's the wrong angle for it. What model of 12 volt power are you using? I'm using a bunch. I'm using more than I anticipated, actually. Let's see if I can get in here. And for me, I guess with this one, it's been, if I can come into, where is it, this button here? I guess my mode has been trying to put all the connections facing out, so if I need to troubleshoot anything, I can. And then the power is, I mean, there's some more stuff in here, a bit of a reach by the time it's finished, but the power stuff is sort of semi-accessible. And then the power bricks themselves are kind of like up here, which have been using the dual lock as kind of, you know, the dual lock that you can just kind of stick things onto. I'm going to try and get a streaming bridge in here too, because I think that'd be handy. So I've got over this side, I have, if you can see over there, I've got the router power. There's a little white ubiquity power, so that's always going to be on. Next to it, I've got, you can't see this, take my word for it, I've got a 60 watt Sonnet power, which is doing the deck link enclosure, that'll be here. And then I've got the cloudpod, which is not that much power, but it's running a 60 watt power brick. I think I've got one over here I can pull. Let me just see if I can grab that. Hopefully it's not plugging into anything I need. I mean, there's nothing super fancy. I mean, this one was plugged in. So these kind of, you know, you can just buy these off Amazon. This one is a 60 watt, I think. Yeah, 12 volt, 5 amp. And usually what I'm looking for is something with the little figure 8. And then I'll get, where did I put it? All my Amazon stuff. I don't know. Here we go. This sort of thing. So some of what takes up a lot of space in a rack is just cables sticking out in different directions. Suddenly you've got a lot less space than you thought about. So getting something like a right angle plug can go a long way. And so just like even that kind of thing into there just gives me a lot more space. So I've got the deck link, the cloud pod, and then I've got a, what's this one? 120 volts up here in this side. So there's a bunch of power adapters on this side. And then on this side, there's quite a bit more depth back here in this sort of hollow area at the base. So up here, I have, I don't know if you can see up there, I've got, you can't see up here, but I've got a 120 watt, so it's like a 10 amp, 12 volt power, which is, no, sorry, that's the PoE. 12 volt, 120 watt is on the other side. So that's the 12 volt circuit that gets turned off. And then the cloudpod one is 60 watts that stays on. And then I've got a 200 watt Netgear PoE switch. So that's this one. So that's going to run, this is what it'll be connected to, 16 out to connect to cameras and, you know, all the other things that need PoE and DMX adapters and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's there. Then I've got this 60 watt 6 USB out. It's just USB A. I think I've got a similar one somewhere. Ugh. Here we go. I've got this one's a 4-port version. So again, the figure 8 plug here, so it's easy to make a right angled plug on that. And then on the front, this one's got 4 USB. Often take this to shoots just to charge things. The one that I've got in here is 6 USB. And then I've got a bunch of pigtails. Did I put that in there? Yeah, it is in there. You can't really see it. Which are going to plug into these bidirectional converters. So I've got 6 bidirectional converters, which on the back end all take USB-C. And so that's running all those converters, and they power down when I don't need them. Then I've got two other HDMI duplicators, which actually run off just things that I've acquired over the years. You can get these 12 volt to USB-A adapters, which means that I can easily take off a jump lead off my 12 volt circuit, convert it to 5 volt, and then have like this one's converts to the right size plug, which is, I don't know what that is, 1.3 mil or something rather than 2.1, and then that'll go into these HDMI ones because they take a barrel adapter like that. So that's how I've been using those ones. And then what else have I got? I've got right at the back, I've got a 12 volt 60 watt power adapter. Again, I think it's just one of these, I bought a whole bunch of these off Amazon a while ago, so I've got a bunch of 12 volts sitting around. And that is the ATEM Extreme. So where is that? I haven't plugged it in yet, but that'll be, I think this one I actually bought because it's got a 2.5 mil head on it. So it means I can just plug it in without having to adapt it. And so that'll be the ATEM Mini Extreme. And like I was saying, that is on its own circuit so that it can be switched off separate to the rest of the rack. I'm going to dump this one down here and come back to a safety shot. Thanks for the questions. Really, really good questions. See if I can power through these questions. And then I got a couple more things I wanted to show you here. Are you using one power supply for all of your Blackmagic microconverters? Yes, like I was showing you there, it's just a third-party figure 8 plug to 6 USB-A ports, and then I've got 1 foot patches from USB-A to USB-C, and that's just sort of streamlines it. So all those connectors are running on one rather, because all those Blackmagic things are big chunky wall wart things. How do you have Dante routed between the two racks? What's signal flow? Good question. I'll get to that a little bit in the next segment, and I'll also get to that next week because I have, if you take a look at my audio rack, hasn't really progressed. It's just got the wing sitting in it, but I have the, where did it go? It's not right here. Oof. I have the wing Dante card. So I'm going to be taking the external expansion slot and putting it on the internal one so that I can keep the SSD cards. But time. People need time to do these things. I wish I could just rip through it. But just getting all this power stuff this is my homework. This is getting this down solid means I keep all that power management to one U space rather than it taking up a whole bunch of stuff. And now that the cable's really neat, I think the rest of it is going to accelerate in terms of putting in the router and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I'll get to the audio in a coming live stream. But essentially, just one Ethernet between the two boxes. So I've got two 8U boxes and there'll be one Ethernet connection. And I've got some adapters, which I'll show you in the next segment. How are you handling? Okay. How often do you reformat your SSDs? Not that often. I don't know if the good practice is to reformat it more regularly. I thought they would probably don't have the same fragmentation problems that the spinning ones did years ago. So it's probably more if I'm changing the use of it from a ATEM recorder to something I'm going to edit with or something like that. Can you share the brand and type of your short and thin SDI cables? Yes. So I got a whole bunch, and I've just sort of accumulated them over the years from different projects. So, like, I think these ones are Amazon. I think these ones are, and I think they're actually just 3G cables. I've been more and more, when I'm buying stuff now, I'm trying to buy 4K stuff just so that if I ever do switch to 4K, I've already got those components rather than having to go out and getting everything. I think I should link this afterwards. I was trying to think if I can find them. If you go to either Amazon or B&H and search for either 3G or 12G SDI patch cable, maybe put in the word thin SDI cable, then you should be able to find them. I think you can get, they often sell like 2 cables for $10 on Amazon, or about 1 cable for about $10, $11, $12 on B&H, depending on, you know, the brand and all that kind of stuff. So it can add up, you know, if you've got 20 cables and you've got a couple $100 of just patch cables. I think that's the hidden cost of some of these things. You know, like the deck link is, they're $25 each for the mini cables. I'll link some in the show notes afterwards. Excuse me. Have you ever run into issues with power supplies overheating or being inefficient, unreliable? Excuse me. I haven't. No, I think they've all been fine. I'm always like, everything in here I do label and just sort of, you know, everything, all these pink things in here are just keeping tabs on, like, you know, so here it says PoE 200 watts. So I'm just sort of keeping tabs on what's going through a particular circuit. But that was, remember back at the beginning, the reason I wanted to get a 15 amp input was I just wanted the top end of this to have a more, you know, 14 AWG, you know, thicker cable for the top end of it, and then the bottom end of it, you know, when you're going to individual devices like the streaming, what do you call it, web presenter, or whatever they call it these days. The web presenter 4K can have a lighter weight, like an 18 AWG cable at that end, because there's not much power going through it. I don't think I showed you this, but I was going to show you the A10. I showed you this the other week, so you might be familiar. But this is what is running on in the center strip of the rack facing upwards, and then I've got a bunch of right-angled plugs that are sort of coming off here. So what I've got is, if you imagine my Furman is sitting up here, and then there's one of the plugs, one of the Wi-Fi plugs, and then I've got a short right angle plug about here going into a right angled IEC here. And so that means I can sort of Wi-Fi switch everything on this strip, and then everything that I want to power off on the rack gets plugged into this strip. And then go back to over here. So that's this strip here, which is doing the bulk of things like the 12 volt circuit and bidirectional converters, all that kind of stuff, the constellation. And then these ones are the other Wi-Fi plugs, and then the rest of them are like the router and that kind of stuff, which is always going to be on. So that's kind of how I've been organizing that. And that item has been one of my favorite finds, just because it's really compact and it just has a ton of, you know, you can plug a ton of things into there. So it's nice for all those little, you know, those little devices that you want to just kind of get plugged in without it being a massive, massive strip. In my experience, Blackmagic micro-converters get way hotter than anything else I use day to day. I think, I can't remember if you were saying last week, but I did actually reorganize them a little bit, and I've got a little bit more space in between them now. But yeah, they can get quite hot. Also, the the NDI converter, I think, gets quite hot. So I actually haven't, there's a lot of this rack I haven't actually powered on yet. So I guess I'll, once I test that out and get to that stage of the rack build, then we shall report back. But I have that AC infinity fan that'll sit up the top, and that has a temperature gauge on it that I can sort of keep tabs on it as well. Also, this rack is a bit more shallower and vertical, which I think should have more open space at the back of it. Whereas my other rack was like longer and shorter, so I think maybe it would have trapped heat more. So I'm hoping that can help. What else? Power supplies. I think I've got everything on that. All right, let's kick along. Next up, we're going to talk about the Mac Mini M4 mount, which I was going to, sorry, I didn't load the email, but one of the viewers of the channel sent me an email. I can't remember the name. I should have prepped that before. Thank you for sending it through. Had some great info about Mac mounts. And so from Amazon, I was able to get a Mac mount. You may remember previously I was talking about how so I've got like a utility tray here, which is 3.5 inches. And then I have my dual lock that I sort of put onto everything these days. And I had put my Mac Mini on the bottom, and I went to like take it off to just relocate it it had the dual lock, but the dual lock was stronger than the actual plastic base of this. And so I kind of ripped the whole back end of the Mac Mini off, which really surprised me I just was expecting it to be stronger. So what I've got here, which was suggested to me by someone on the channel, is a mount for it, which I'll show you over here on Amazon. Where are we? This one. So there's a bunch of different ones. They go up to about $49 or something. Yeah, like $50 or something. But I found this one, which actually it's like $16, and it's been really good. Fits it well. It feels like a nice, sort of I don't know, soft metal. Like smooth edges on the metal, and it's got some pads to kind of stop it wobbling around. And yeah, so I guess you can either install it under a desk like this, or you can install it, where's the other product pictures? Like on the wall or something like that, or on the back of a computer. And, but the way that I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna actually mount this upside down, and I got an Apple TV on top, and I'm waiting for Apple to bring out a new Apple TV. I think this is like a 2012 model, but I want to have make sure that stays down. Oh, jeez, this is not very strong, this thing. So I'm going to put it upside down, facing out, and then I've offset this from the utility tray, so this just gives a bit more space to insert it. And then this has got the dual lock, and it does come with screws, so I could have put the screws through here and found a sort of self-locking nut on the back, and there's nothing below that, so the screw would have been fine. But I just went the route of the dual lock, which is nice because you can kind of get your exact placement, and I'd wanted to get this big ass 240 watt USB-C output because I run a bunch of other things out, like teleprompters, which are actually using USB-C power. So I wanted to fit that all in there, and then this one then just slides in like this, like that, and is like that. So very secure. I've set it back a little bit because just to allow the cables a bit more space to sort of stick out from here. This is the sort of front end of the rack. So that is how that is going to sit. And then eventually I'll get my deck link in there as well. And I've got made a little bed of the dual lock tape here. So is actually like the bottom one, and then another double-sided, and then that just elevates it to kind of lock the back of it, and then I'll zip tie this one in place eventually. So that'll be the conversions, like the SDI to HDMI converters, and the computer and the deck link that is going to sit at that back section. So just thought worth mentioning because it was it's pretty cheap. It's like $15 for that. Down. Oh. Keep your questions coming in. I'm going to see if we got anything from that. What do we got? I think anyone has color copper, the same quality. I think anyone has trouble with rack mounting them, so you should be good, but it's strange for their size, power, usage. I think you're talking about the Mac Mini on Facebook. I have not seen trouble rack mounting them. I'm assuming you're talking about the Mac Mini, not the converters. But we'll see once I get that plugged in and up and running and it's on all the time. And from what I Googled, mounting it upside down, if anything, should help it in terms of the heat dissipation and the fan. It's got the Mac Mini has a forced fan on the bottom of it, so I think it should operate just as well. Also makes it very easy to push the power button if you need that, because that'll be sitting on top. So that's that one. And lastly, so the other aspect is Dante and the Blackmagic SDI to audio converter. As I mentioned before, I went from a 4U rack, which kind of had everything in it, although it didn't really have audio in it. And then I got this case, which I really like, and that's an 8U, but the wing that is over here is a 4U space already. So there just wasn't enough space to put all of the audio and the video in a portable rack. And so I just decided to split it in two. So I've got two 8U racks. And so next week we'll look at, hopefully I'm up and running by then, the wing rack with Dante in it. And then I've got another Stream Deck Studio here. And then I've got a bunch of Sennheiser mics I'm going to install on the top, and an in-ear monitor and some other networking stuff. So that is all going to be the audio side of it. And I think actually, they sent me, when I say they sent me, oh. Anyway, I've also got the P24 personal mixer, so I want to play around with using that as a mixer in a more sort of remote fashion. But the idea with the wing rack is that Companion can control it. The module's being built at the moment. And so then that can be built into a run of show queues. So the challenges with that are that probably mainly the hyperdeck. So with this rack, there's two aspects to it, is getting audio into the constellation. So I've actually got these two here. So this is, let's come back to close up here. I went for the Copool because we'll see how they go, but they were a bit cheaper. These were more like, I think I got them for like $120 rather than $200, which is basically a PoE network in Dante and then outputting to analog audio to just these connectors, which is a little annoying because for the Constellation, I have to get this little pigtail to go into a 1/4-inch jack. So that is, this starts getting kind of bulky and it takes up a lot of space. So once the mix has happened in the audio rack, it's connected over Ethernet. So via Dante, it's going to come into this converter and the main mix is going to go into the Constellation. And let's go to this one, I think it was. Is that right? Yeah, so we've got, so channel 1, channel 2. So that's where that's going to live inside the rack. I've got to sort of find a way to tuck it away. That's audio into the live stream. I've also got a separate dongle just for either room audio out elsewhere. I might have it at a venue, but in the studio I'll just sort of run that on the monitors that are here, the studio monitors. And then, where is it? It's down here. Oh my god, there's got so much stuff. Okay. And then the other tricky one is actually the hyperdeck. So while I could just take the audio from the hyperdeck, back here, when I play a video out, for live streaming, I could just, in the ATEM software, open up that channel, play it out to the live stream. But often when I'm at a venue and you want to play back a video, you kind of need to send that through the main audio system. And so you really need to extract that audio from the hyperdeck, which is, it's really annoying that there's no just audio out on the back of it, or that there's not more sort of digital formats available. So I've gone the route of getting this $300 or something SDI to audio 4K Ultra HD, which is this one. Coming a bit closer here. So takes a 12 volt. So again, that will plug into my 12 volt circuit. And then there's SDI that'll be coming in from the hyperdeck. It has a SDI in and an alternate SDI in. If the other one fails, it would fall back on that, and then an SDI out. So I could get the hyperdeck, loop it through here, extract the audio, and then get the output of this and put it into the Constellation for playback. Although I'm going to play around with the monitor out on the hyperdeck so that I can do the key and the fill from the hyperdeck directly into the Constellation, and then separately take the 3G monitor output, which I don't really use for actual monitoring. I just got to check. I'm not sure if the audio embedded on it is different to the main one. Hopefully it wouldn't be, but I might just use that. So it's kind of like not relying on going through this system, rather than, I mean, it should be fine, but you never know what can happen. You just want to sort of be foolproof. So that would be the video coming in. This extracts the audio. Options here are 4 analog channels. So either it can take the balance sort of 1/4 inch. And again, it's annoying because I got the 1/4 inch through to the XLR plug, which is this one. So you got to get that adapter, small stuff. And then that's going into the Dante input, and then that's PoE into the system. So this is going to basically extract the audio, send it to the mixer, and I'm going to do the mix there in terms of deciding what goes to the room, what goes to a live stream, and so then it'll come back in on sort of the main channel that way. So sounds simple in theory, and then in practice, all this stuff just becomes more things that you got to power and fit into a rack, and it's just like a small thing, but I kind of want to get that, just because I really want to get that Dante connection, so that setup is just super simple. I just need to know that as long as we have that one Ethernet connection between the 2 racks, that audio is good to go. That's the device. Oh, I was also going to say it has 4 outputs, so you can do 4 analogs, or 1 and 2 is on 1, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8 of AES EBU audio. So there's that option as well. Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. No questions. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm gonna thank you for your questions. It's really great getting the questions and knowing what things you want answered helps sort of guide what I'm talking about and makes it more enjoyable to do that. So depending on how I go with shoots and stuff this week, in my downtime, I'm trying to do the wing Dante installation into the rack. I've got to finish building the main the main video rack out, and then I can start on the audio one. Got a whole bunch of audio gear sitting here that I'm really excited to get into the audio rack. So hopefully next week, maybe the week after, I'll be showing you how I've done the audio setup in that rack. Because I kind of wanted something where I could sort of run it myself, or for bigger events when I'm bringing in an A1, A2, that I can be like, okay, here's your audio rack, and you can manage the mics and the mixing and all that kind of stuff in your own rack, and you can sit a little bit further away, so we're not on top of each other. And there's also the option, I guess, of using it more as a stage box and placing it somewhere else in the venue as well. All right. Excellent. All right, well, that's it for today. Hopefully that gave you a bit of an overview of where the rack build is up to. I'm looking forward to getting it finished so I can move on to other things and reclaiming the studio space, because there's a lot of mess in here, and I want to just get this all finished, and the excess cabling, I want to get that back and returned and just close this bad boy up so that we can get around to the more fun stuff of a more consolidated switch, more powerful switching that is sort of out of the way, and it's going to open this studio up for a little bit more space. It's still small in here, but until next week, take care. I'll see you then.